Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF, GITTEN Chav Zayin. We begin right on top of the Mishnah. Maybe get, so a shliach delivers a get, and suddenly it's missing, it's lost. Mitzoi la'alter, so if he discovers the get right away, what is considered la'alter? The Gemara will explain what is this shear. So pretty close to losing it, he suddenly recovers the get. Then he knows it's the same get, kosher, and it could be used. Vim lav, but if it's been a while since he lost it, and now he discovers something which appears like his get, you never know. Maybe it's somebody else's get, and therefore he can't use it. It's puzzle. However, mitzoi b'chafiso, but if he recovers the get while it's sitting in some sort of backpack, some sort of container, which was his, which he recognizes, or im makiroi, or if he actually solidly recognizes his get, he knows this is the get and none other, then we say, in fact, it's kosher. So the Mishnah gives us a limitation. It's limited in time. If he finds it right away, then we know it's the get. Otherwise, perhaps somebody else dropped it, and it really belongs to somebody else. V'raminu, the Gemara will present a kash, a stira, from a Mishnah elsewhere in Maseches Bava Metzia, which seems to tell us that you can return the get to the loser even if it's a while later. And we're not concerned that perhaps it's another get and not the original one. Motza gitei noshim, a person finds a get isha v'shechruri avadim, or documents which were meant for the Eved's release. Diatiki, Rashi says, Diatiki is sort of an acronym. Da, tehei, lamekam, v'koi. It's the will of a shchibmara, a person who's deathly ill. So you find that type of document. Or matanis, gift documents, v'sheivar and receipts. Hareze lo yachzir, he should not be giving this document back to anybody. You know why? Shani Eimer, because I can speculate, ksuvin hayu, that really, perhaps this person wrote a get to divorce his wife. He wrote a shtar matana to give a gift, but he changed his mind. V'nimlach alein sheloy nitnan, he had a change of mind, a change of heart, doesn't want to give it anymore. And therefore you have no right to hand this document to anybody. To the giver, to the receiver, to the husband, to the wife. You never know the story behind it. That's the Mishnah. Let's make a diuk in the Mishnah. The only reason why you don't return it is because we don't know which party to return it to. But suppose the husband says, give it to the wife, it's hers. Or the borrower tells us, give it to the lender, it's his. Nice, we trust him, we give it. Even if much time passed since the document was lost. Bottom line, you see that if a person loses a get, and we have reason to believe that it's his get, you can have it back, even though it's been a long time. And the Mishnah by us tells us only la'alter kasha, if it's right soon after the fact, then, but otherwise not. Amar Rabba Loikasha, the answer is like this. It depends on circumstance. It depends how much traffic is passing through the area. Is it a travel hub or not? Kan b'mokim shashayoros, the caravans, the travelers, are metzuyos, are prevalent and common, unfound. And that's the Mishnah by us. A place of heavy traffic. And therefore, we're concerned that perhaps this get was dropped by somebody else. But Khan, the other Mishnah, in Bava Metzia, which is not concerned about that chance, is speaking b'makim she'ein hashayaros metzuyos. There aren't too many travelers in the area, in which case it lessens any such concerns. Va'afilu b'makim hashayaros metzuyos. And Rabbi continues, even when we have lots of traffic in the area, you should know it's only a concern if we meet one more condition. V'hu, it's only a chashash if shehuchsaku, it has been established that we have two people with identical names living in a city. Shnei Yosef ben Shimon bir Achas. Then we could say perhaps it belongs to the other Yosef ben Shimon, not this one. So bottom line, the concern is only when two conditions are met. Much traffic through the area, and we know for a fact that two people with the identical names living in the same city. Because otherwise, if both conditions do not have to be met to present a concern, then we'll have another problem. Because who's the one telling us? Who's the one explaining this to us? This is Rabbah. Kasha, the Rabbah. We're going to have a contradiction between one Rabbah and the other. How? We have a story. Dahu Gita, there was a certain get, Ishtakach Beidina, which was discovered lying in the Bezdin, the Rav Huna of Rav Huna. Vahavak Sibbe. And the location in the get was described as follows. Bishviri Masa, that it was written in the town of Shviri Masa, Da'al Brachis Nahara on the riverbank. Vamar Rav Huna says, well, there could be many towns with the same name, Choshishin Lishnei Shviri. We're concerned perhaps that it doesn't belong to this person who's claiming it. It belongs to another person who also hails from a town called Shviri Masa al Rachis Nara. So you can't return it to this person. Va'amarle Rav Chizda Rabbah. Rav Chizda tells Rabbah, you know what? Go investigate the matter. Go look into the halacha. Go out. Va'ayin ba, look into this matter, into this halacha. The le'urta, because come tonight, boilach minach. Rav Huna, the Rebbe, is going to come and ask you. He's going to want to know your conclusion in terms of the halacha. Can we return the get to the claimer or not? So Rabbah went out, Nafak went out, Dak v'ashkach. He investigated the matter, he looked into the halacha, and he discovered a solution. We have a Mishnah, this none. Kol ma'aseh bezdin, harei yachzir. So the case over there is speaking about a shtar which was mekuyam, which had been certified in Bezdin. Then we can give it back to the one who's claiming it, and Rashi explains there's no concern that it was just written to keep as a spare, and he decided not to use it, not to lend money with it, etc. Because who comes to certify a shtar, says Rashi? A loan document, the malva, the lender. After it had been given to him, he goes and certifies it to make sure he can use it for collection. So we're not concerned that it was never really actualized, that it wasn't really activated. Okay, so bottom line, Rabbah sought to bring a raya from this very Mishnah that you can return the get to this person who's claiming it. And of course, as Rashi mentions, the shtar, the get, which had been discovered in Rav Huna's Bezdin, also fit this criterion. It was also a shtar which had been certified in a Bezdin, and a person simply dropped it and he claims it back. So Rabbah says, look, no concern, because to suspect that it was never actually activated, once it's certified, that indicates activation. And to suspect that perhaps it was written for another person with the same identical name from a different town, we see from this Mishnah, Kol Ma'aseh Bezdin, harei yachzir, we're not concerned about duplicate names. Okay, now, what do we see from here? That Rabbah is not concerned about duplications. Rabbah allows it to be returned to the one claiming that he drops it. Right? Let's analyze the story further. Where did the story take place? In the Bezdin of Rav Huna, a very busy place. It's like a place which is heavily frequented by visitors. It's a heavily traveled area. Rashi says everybody would come to do the Dinei Torah, to learn the halachas. So despite the fact that we have lots of people, and Rabbah himself recommended that we return the shtar. Alma, what does that tell us about Rabbah's opinion? Traffic alone is not a concern, unless you have that second condition met, that we have it as an established fact that we have two people with the same names, then we have a concern. So traffic plus duplication, that poses a concern. Alma, apparently, ihuchsaku. Shnei Yosef ben Shimon bir achas. Only if we have a duplication. For certainty, we know for sure that two people with the same name, then we have a concern, but otherwise not. The Gemara brings another story with Rabbah himself, Avad Rabbah Uvda, Rabbi actually carried out halacha l'maisa. Bahu gita dishtakach bekitna, regarding a get which was found amongst the flax, and he returned it to its owner, or the one who claimed to have dropped it. Dishtakach bekitna, where was it? Bipum bedisa, in the town of Bedisa, kishmata, in line with his opinion that we're not really concerned about duplication, and perhaps somebody else dropped it with the same name, unless both conditions are met, lots of traffic, and we have an established duplicate. Now, there were two versions on how this story happened. Some say the get was discovered where they soak the flax, although in that specific place it was known that we have two people with this name, but it still was not a concern. You know why? No traffic. It's a private area. It's a industrial zone where there isn't much traffic. So only the condition of the Shnei Yosef ben Shimon were met, but not the traffic condition. Some say the other way around. The get was found in a place where they sell the cotton on the marketplace. So in the flax marketplace, which was a very heavily populated place, so we have the traffic, but since we had not been aware of anybody with the same name in the area, even though we have lots of people walking through, but since duplication was not established, there's no concern. So bottom line, a shliach delivers a get, or is en route to delivering a get, drops the get, and now wants to reclaim the get which was discovered, which was found. If it was right away, la'alta, we give it back to him. Or if he recognizes the get, then he has a right to reclaim it. Otherwise, if it's been a while since he dropped it, then there may be a concern provided two conditions are met. Lots of traffic in the area, and it was Huchsak Shnei Yosef ben Shimon. We know for a fact that we have two people with the same name, in which case that poses a concern that perhaps this get belonged to the other person, and we cannot return it to him. But again, we need two conditions: traffic and duplication. So Rabbah had asked a kasha from our Mishnah that you can only return it if it was found right away, otherwise not, to a Mishnah in Bava Metzia, which indicated that if the parties agree to return it, the husband agrees to give it to the wife, etc., then we can do it even if it's been a while since it was dropped. And we answered, well, depends on the conditions, depends on the circumstance. Rabbi Zera says the Rabbi Zera Rami Masnis Nabraisa. Here's a different type of kasha, very similar, but instead of asking from our Mishnah, which tells us that if it's been a while you can't return it, to another Mishnah, he asked it to another Bryce, Umishani, and he sought to answer the kasha as well. Okay, Tanan, let's go back to our Mishnah, which is the starting point of this kasha. Maybe get to Avadei Menu. So Shliach lost the get, Imotzoy La'alter kasha, if he finds it right away, okay, if you have puzzle, otherwise you can't give it back to him, it's puzzle. Minu, here comes a kasha from another Bryce. Motza get Isha B'shuk. A fellow is walking down the road, discovers a get. If the husband agrees to give it back to the Isha, he says, sure, I divorced her, it's hers. Yachsal Isha, then he may return it to the Isha. If the husband denies having ever given it to the Isha, lo yachsal lo lezev lo lezeh, you can't give it to anybody. You can't give it to the Isha to claim divorce. You can't give it to the husband. And Rashi says, perhaps he'll use it as a receipt for having paid off the ksuba. In any case, you keep it, you don't return it to either party. Says the Gemara, bizman shabal moide. But it's pretty clear from this price that if the husband is agreeable, he's okay with giving it back to the Isha, miyas, so in any case, the Achsel Isha, you can give it to the Isha, even though it's been a year. And now Mishnah, we set a time limit. Umishani and Reb Zera answered the kasha, well, it depends. Kan b'makom shasharis mitzuris. Our Mishnah speaking where there's traffic, perhaps somebody else dropped it. Kan b'makom shasharis mitzuris. The Bryce is speaking when traffic is sparse and it's an unpopulated area, and therefore there's no time limitation. We assume you dropped it, give it back to you. Now, what about the other condition? Duplication of names. Some say, the only time Reb Zera would tell us not to return it is if on top of the traffic factor we have the duplication factor. We know there's somebody with the same name. Vainad Rabba, which is perfectly matching with Rabba, who also set forth both conditions. Others learned that Reb Zera disagrees with Rabba. He doesn't require both conditions for trouble. Don't even return it even when there is no establishment of duplication. As long as you have the traffic, that's enough of a reason for concern of Pliga de Rabba, and this is in disagreement with Rabba, who requires both conditions. Okay, so bottom line is, we have a Mishnah by us, which sets a time limit. Only la'alter, you can return it, but after a while, don't return it. Rabba asked from a Mishnah, which seemed to indicate even after Azman Meruba, there's no concern. And Rabba says, okay, because by us we have two issues, two factors against us. We have lots of people in the area, we have duplication. And Rabbi Zera asked a similar kasha, but from the Mishnah to a different brisa, which says, well, if the husband's okay returning it to the Isha, you can give it back to her, which sounds like even if it's a year later. And the answer was, well, it depends on circumstance. Now, Bishlam the Rabba, I understand why Rabba chose to ask from our Mishnah to a different Mishnah rather than to the brisa, which Reb Zera asked from, because, it's always better to ask from a Mishnah, which is, established as accurate. He preferred asking from a Mishnah. The question is, why did Reb Zera prefer asking from a brisa rather than a Mishnah, which was Rabba's point of reference? The answer is like this. Reb Zera felt that you couldn't ask a kasha from our Mishnah to that Mishnah. Amalach, he responds like this. Miktani, does Rabba's Mishnah then say clearly does Mishnah say that, if the husband's okay with returning it, you give it back to her even if it's a year late? It doesn't say that in the Mishnah. All the Mishnah says is like this. If nobody is here to tell us what happened, we can't return it because we're concerned perhaps, it was written but it was never issued. That's the end of story. Now we made it an implication, a deal. The concern is because it was never activated, it was never issued. But perhaps if husband's okay with returning it to the wife, you do it. So it's a deal. And we went a step further and said, okay, there's no time limitation either. But the Mishnah never mentioned how long after we're speaking. The Mishnah never even discussed returning it. The Mishnah said, don't return it if there's nobody here to confirm. We made a deal. But if there's somebody here agreeing, if the Baal is Moide, you can return it to the Isha. And then we went a step further, even forever. Who says? Dilma, perhaps. If husband is okay with returning it, sure, you listen, you give it to her. As we know, based on our Mishnah, provided it's within a reasonable time. So bottom line says, Reb Zera, there's no kasha from that Mishnah. The Mishnah can be perfectly matching with our Mishnah. There's a time limitation. I asked from a brisa. Why? Because the brisa clearly speaks about the next phase as well. The brisa says, when the husband is okay with it, the brisa clearly discusses that. If he's okay, you can return it to her. That's pretty simple, obvious halacha. It must be the brisa is trying to include even that extended time frame. Look, if the Baal is moida, you can return it to her even if it's a year later. That's a solid kasha on our Mishnah, which says no. You could only return it to the shliach if it was found the altar. And that was the kasha, and the answer is as we explained. Now we have several more answers to our kasha. The kasha was, in our Mishnah we say, shliach drops or claims to have dropped a get. He wants it back. It could only return to him if it was la'alter, if it was immediately after the fact, but otherwise we're concerned perhaps somebody else dropped it and it got mixed up. Whereas in the other Mishnah of Rabbah and Reb Zera's brisa, we seem to have endless time for that. No time limitation. So Rabbi Yirmiyah Amar, I'll give you an answer. Going to Ka'amri Edom. Those cases are speaking where the Edom are testifying. The Edom are standing again, telling us, look, there was one get with this husband's name, Yosef ben Shimon, that we signed on. We never signed on two GITTEN with the same name. And actually, we know this is the one we signed for. And Teresa says the get obviously not there, otherwise they would just recognize their signatures. But bottom line is, they're supporting the shliach. They're saying, look, we signed for this, this husband, and this is the only Yosef and Shimon we signed. So then even if it's a year later, you can return it. Well, says the Gemara, then that's Pashat. Remember, then if that's the case, then why even discuss it? What's the Chiddush? Ma'od Tema, perhaps we should be concerned that even that is not a confirmation, 100%. Ma'od Tema, perhaps we'll say Lechash, we should be concerned. Dilma, you never know, maybe by chance, Isrami Shma Kishma, Ve'edim Ke'edim, we so happen to have the same husband's name and the same Edim's names, and maybe they did sign on the other get, not on this get, and this get was signed by a different Edim with the same name and belongs to a different husband. Kamashmon, the Chiddush is no, we're not concerned. Therefore, we can give it back, even if it's a year later. Rav Ashi Amar, he gives another teretz. Kigon de Amar, who's speaking that the shliach is claiming that he has such a, strong simon to indicate that this is his get. Nekev yesh boy betzado. His plain is he knows there's a little puncture right near such and such a letter in the get. Go check it out, you'll see. This is the get that I was commissioned to deliver. Davali simon mubak is an absolute simon. But dafka betzado is plainis. Says the Gemara, that's only because he has an actual, simon, a hole, a puncture near this letter. Davali simon mubak, that's an actual simon. Aval nekev ba'amalai. But if he just claims to have to have some sort of get with a hole somewhere, that doesn't work, because it's not so absolute, mesapkali, because now the Gemara is not sure. Rashi is not 100% certain if simonin, the fact that we return a lost item based on a simon, giving a sign, is that minat Torah, ida iraisa, in which case it can work even for get. So even if he claims, sort of a meek simon, a hole somewhere in the get, that is sufficient to return the get to the shliach, to divorce the isha, for the iraisa purposes, either rabban, or perhaps this whole concept that we learn in Maseches Bava Metzia, Perek El Metzia, is that we return a lost item to its owner when he, presents a simon, even if it's not an absolute, 100%, confirmed simon. Who return it to him? Maybe that's only the Rabbanon, because Hefker, Hefker, the Bezdin has the ability to expropriate, and we deem it his because of, in all probability it's his, right? But when it comes to returning a get, that's the Iraisa that carries heavy ramifications. Perhaps we can't just go with the meek, simon system, and therefore we wouldn't return it to the shliach unless he gives us a simon mubak, an absolute high level, 100% confirmed simon, such as nekef yeshli b'tzad ois plainis. So bottom line, we have a Mishnah which says, don't return the get to the shliach unless you found it right away. We have other sources, Mishnahs and Brisa, which tells us that even a while later, we have several terutzim. Either our Mishnah speaking in a heavily traveled area, and perhaps we have information that we have two people with the same name living in that town. That's why it raises a concern that perhaps it was dropped by somebody else, someone with the same name. Rabbi says, well, the reason why we'll trust the shliach after a while, the reason why we'll return the get after a while, as indicated in the other Mishnah Brisa, speaking that there are Edom who testify that we only signed on one get with his name. Rav Ashi says the shliach has an absolute simon, and that's why we return it to him. Says the Gemara, Rabba Bar Brachana, Irchas leGitta, he was commissioned to deliver a get, and he lost the get. He dropped it in Bei Midrash, in the Beis HaMedrash. Omar, he declared, he announced, look, Rabbi Yisai, you found the get. Listen to me. Either or. We can use one of two methods. Either we can use a simon that I have in the get to verify that I was the shliach. Or I can just simply take a close look at it, and I'll tell you, that I'm familiar with this get. I recognize that it's my get. So what happened? They listened to him. Adru Ne'alei, they returned it to him. But he wasn't sure on account of what. Because of the simon that he provided, or the tvius eina. Omar, he said, Lo yadan, I'm not sure. Imishum simon adru, did they return it because of the simon? Because sabri simon and the rice, and they hold that the simon system can be effective even for a get, which is the rice. Is that the reason? Imishum tvius eina, is it because of my claim of recognition, and that has its limitations. V'dafka tumar rabbanon only works by a Talmid Chacham who is known to be trustworthy and a man of integrity. Aval inish ba'amalei, but stam, a person he can't just have his get returned by claiming that he recognizes it. Okay, now we have to, define the definition of the word la'alter in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says the shliach dropped a get. If he discovered it la'alter, then we can return it to him. What does la'alter mean? Right away. Right away is relative. We have several shittas. What's considered beyond the time frame of la'alter, which makes it too late? Rabbi Nosson Omer sheshah kadei shetavar shayara v'tishre. Yeah, basically the shliach, from the time that he lost it, was waiting around enough time that a group of people can actually come by and camp out in that location, which gives us more reason to believe that perhaps somebody else dropped it. Reb Shimon Elazar Omer, that's not enough of a shear, meaning it's more specific than that. It's more machmer. The altar means that there was a person actually standing in the area and nobody else passed by. Otherwise, too late. Some add you need somebody standing and watching, that there was nobody coming and staying and standing around. That's a bit of a more lenient shear. Passing by is not a problem, but you have to make sure nobody actually stood around here, which lends to reason that perhaps he was sitting around and pulled out his things and dropped something. Rabbi Omer, a different shear, k'dei lichtav a get. The amount of time it takes to write a get. Rabbi Yitzchak Omer, k'dei l'kroise, the amount of time it takes to read a get. Acherim Omer, k'dei l'choisve v'l'kroise, amount of time it takes to write and read a get. And some say this is just shiurim, halacha l'meshim Sinai, and others learn. Well, actually, they ask. It's not halacha l'meshim Sinai. Why do we give these shiurim? So Tiferes Yaakov says perhaps the basis for the last three shiurim are the first couple of shiurim. We understand it's more about traffic and probabilities, but at the shiur of writing a get, reading a get, so he says perhaps the concern is that maybe once the shliach lost the get, the isha, out of desperation, quickly commissioned another get and was going to try to slip it into the hands of into the pocket, into the suitcase of the shliach, so that she has a get. So that's why we give this shiur, the amount of time it takes to read, to write, etc. And the Gemara continues, Vafilu shah. Now even if this longer time period passed, but we have a saving grace. V'yesh bo simonim. But the get has absolute simonim mubhakim me'idim olav. Then yeah, so they can testify based on those simonim and retrieve the get. For instance, the Amri, they say neka v'yesh bo b'tzadei's plainness. We know for a fact there was a small puncture near that specific letter in the get. That's considered an absolute simon, 100% verified. But if it's a lower standard simon, for instance, ve'ein me'idim, you can't testify based on a shavacha simon, a weak simon, al simoni aguf, on a simon related to the actual parchment of the get. The Amri, for instance, they say aruch, it's a long get, begut, a short get. There could be 100 such gittin. That's not a simon. But matzoi kosher b'kis. Let's say he found the get tied to a pouch, barnaki, a wallet, tabas, or his ring, and he recognizes it. Or he discovers the get sitting amongst his belongings. Even if it's a while later, kasha, we know it's his, and it's good. It's Mars. Let's conclude the halacha l'maisa regarding the shiurim. What's considered right away? Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, provided nobody stood around there. Rabbi Bachan Amar Rav Yitzchak Bar Shmuel Halacha. What's the halacha? Shloi Avar Adam Sham. Nobody passed through. That is considered la'alter. Now, why do they have to give their own shiurim? Let them just say, well, we paskin like this name or like that name. We had these opinions mentioned in the brisa before, right? Leima Mar. So one Manda Amar over here should say halacha Mar. I paskin like that shita. Umar, the other Manda Amar should say halacha Mar. Paskin like the other shita. Why do they have to, describe the shiurim again? They should just relate to the names. Will match up with those respective time frames. The answer is mishum da'af chilu, because others switch around names and shiurim, so they want to get it clear. And therefore, they stated the shiurim with clarity. You should know this is the shiur. And the Mishnah concluded, but if he discovered to get inside these containers, which he recognizes, then it's his. My chafisa, what is a chafisa? Marabba Rachana, chemes ktana, small leather pouch which the shepherds use for liquid content. Maidlus kmo, what is that? Talika de sabi, a small sack that pouch that the older people use to store their items. Okay, so again in brief, we have a Mishnah which says that if a shliach reclaims his lost get, you can only return it to him if it was la'alter, or if he recognizes the container, or if he recognizes the get with absolute simanim. What about the Mishnah and the Brisa, which indicate that there is no time frame, it's endless, there's no la'alter, and we have several pshatim. Either we're speaking in areas which are not traveled, or in areas which we don't have verification about a duplicate name. We have Edom who say, it's only one get that we signed on with these names, or we have Simon Muvak to indicate that this is his get. Then we have several shiurim in what's considered la'alter, and the halacha l'maisa in terms of this shiur. All the best to you and much hatzlacha to you.